I love Devil May Cry 1.
I played this game before, what? Oh, I freaking hate the camera, man!
Devil May Cry 1, the first game in the Devil May Cry franchise. Fucking obviously.
I don't cry. I'm like a devil. Well, I guess Devil May Cry. Wait.
DMC 1 came out just about 2 decades now and was praised unanimously by critics and fans alike. But we're in 2025 now, and the PS2 is a very old console, retro even. Yeah, you heard me. So, with that being the case, the question then becomes, is Devil May Cry 1 still a good game in 2025? Let's take a look. So, Devil May Cry 1's strongest point is definitely the gameplay, the combat to be specific. It's very good, it plays very well, it was very well designed, and it became the staple combat style of the rest of the franchise to come. And it's one of the most defining action games of all time, so that's why it's very iconic. As you can no doubt tell from my gameplay, I am one of the most casual titwankers alive. I don't play this game like the average Devil May Cry fan, I play this game like it's the first time I'm playing it.
What the tits?
What the tits?
What? No, but I'm nearly dead. What the tits? What tits? What the tits? Is that really what the tits?
I am so fucking sick at this game, man. Yeah, as you can tell, I'm not the best at the combat in this game, but I can still recognise that it is astoundingly good, and it set the foundation for the franchise to come, so there are no complaints on my part with the combat. Gameplay overall, there is a few things that bother me, but a lot of those are just, because the fact that it's a product of its time, it's the PS2 game, and I'll get into that a little bit later. But on the gameplay side of things, combat-wise, no complaints. Okay, so let's talk story in DMC 1. It's relatively light in the way it's portrayed, but it is very important in the overall series. Basically summarised, Dante gets his shop broken into by a woman called Trish, who looks like his mother, who then lures him into a castle where Mundus is going to be reawakened. Mundus is the demon god who was responsible, or partly involved with at the very least, his mother and brother's deaths, so he obviously wants to get involved with that. During the story, Trish also betrays Dante, and it's realised that she was working with Mundus the entire time. And then Dante kills Mundus, or at least seals him up again. And because Trish looks like his mother, Dante doesn't really do anything about that. They kind of become friends in the end, I guess. Yeah, it's not very heavy in the way it's portrayed, it's just important.
Are you the human, the son of Sparta who challenges the darkness for this?
Block off, Featherface, or you can stick around and find out the hard way.
Yeah, the reason why I say this game's story isn't heavy in the way it's portrayed is because most of the important story things happen in like the last 3-4 missions. You know what I mean? This game has 23 missions total, and I'd say like a solid 17, 18 of those are just spent like doing the same 3 things over and over. And I don't mean that in a very negative sense, because again, I will forgive it because this game's 2 decades old, but the majority of missions will follow the same formula. You will go pick up a thing which you need to put into another place which you probably discovered in the mission prior, and by doing so you will either end the mission, which will probably take you another 2 minutes, because a lot of missions are very short in this game, or you will then summon a boss fight, which you will do, and then the next mission you will do something very similar, until you finally get to a cutscene in which you will then follow by doing a very similar thing again. It's very formulaic and repetitive, but I will forgive it. Even though this formula itself is relatively repetitive, it doesn't feel like it when you're playing the game because they handle it in very smart ways, and obviously all the areas that you're going in for the most part are quite new. The game isn't strictly linear because you do go to the same places quite a bit, but not too much to the point where it's like, oh great, I'm back here again. Like, you will find a lot of new places and the map will expand as the game progresses. And also, with this formula, DMC 2, 3, all the games kind of have similar elements where it's like you pick up this thing, put it in this thing, mission over, boss fight, and repeat. But it is definitely at its worst in DMC 1. But again, it is the first game in this series, so I will forgive it.
That was the whole mission. Sorry, I just found a thing. Oh, have I beaten another mission? Oh my god, I have. Why is this? It's like 3 missions in a row that were like 4 minutes or less.
Yeah, that's some of this a bit sloppy. Obviously, it doesn't actually affect the game, so it's not like a genuine critique. I just think it shows the age of this game, and that they hadn't really figured out like everything properly yet. But DMC 1's the shortest game in the franchise at just 6 hours long on average, and yet it has the most amount of missions in the entire series at 23, whereas every other game in the series, I think, has 20. But yeah, some of these missions are literally, as I said, you'll just pick up a thing, put it in a place, and it's done. It'll take like a minute. But then the mission right after that will be you going through multiple other different places, fight a boss, which will take you another like 18 minutes. So that's like, well, what the fuck? Yeah, that's another thing I just want to mention. The architecture, the style, the gothic style of the older games, specifically DMC 1 and 3, because it's not really in 2, but 1 and 3, the gothic style is very interesting. It's eerie, but it's very signature Devil May Cry. But it was unfortunately lost in the later games. DMC 4 and 5 don't really have much of that. DMC 4 has a little bit, but DMC 5, it's entirely lost. Now, I'm not saying that's like, a terrible big deal, because the atmosphere in DMC 4 and 5 is still good. I just wish they'd return to this, because it's signature DMC. Oh, and can I just say, this segment was fucking terrible. Like, if you want to see Devil May Cry 1 as being an aged game, this is the best way of showing it, because fuck me in the bum, this part was awful.
Right, you're pissing me off now.
Yeah, there's one other thing I just want to highlight. I don't really appreciate the fixed camera angles. I understand it's because of technical limitations, but DMC 1, 2, and 3, going back and playing those now, especially DMC 1, fuck me, man. The fixed camera angles piss me off, especially at parkour segments, because it's hard to tell where you're jumping sometimes, especially if the angle is, like, backwards. Fucking hell. It's not often, right? It doesn't piss me off too much. It's not as bad as something like Silent Hill or Resident Evil, like the older ones, but it's still not great. Anyway, folks, that covers just about everything I wanted to say about Devil May Cry 1. Overall, to answer the question, is it still good in 2025? It is. It's got its problems, sure, but most of those are just because of the fact that it was a product of its time, and not so much just the fact that it's a bad game, for example. It's still a great game, it just has its off bits that haven't aged the best. Obviously, it doesn't quite compare to DMC 3 and 5, and even 4 in some things, but it is still a very solid action game, and still feels like a great game to play today.
I should have been the one to fill your dark soul with light.
Cinema.
Kino.
Absolute cinema. Absolute 10 out of 10. 10 out of 10. Square Enix? No, Capcom.